Morning.
Let's talk about fish, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about fish. Let's talk about fish. Fish. Let's talk about fish, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about fish. Let's talk about fish. Fish.
Well, hello, Cassie.
Good morning, Father
Good
Fish.
morning. How are you? Hello, everybody.
I'm
Nice.
doing good. How are you doing?
Dandy. Doing well. Hope everybody else is doing well.
I hope so too.
Just try to keep our focus here. Oh, David Samsel. Good morning. Fish and Tank Dicks. Mary Page. Stephen. Daniel Gonzalez. Great group. Mike Draven Thomas. Johan Martinson, Gene Campbell, Markio 306, Glassbox Fox. You guys, you and Fishing have been on here for more than an hour hanging out. We're just talking about dedication.
Well, maybe they think it still comes on at 8.
No, they said it'll be an hour. Nice to have you.
Die hard, don't they?
Yeah, really. Martins. What's it say? Martinsin. Martinsin. Not son, but seen, huh? Martinsin.
Son.
Pardon?
I'd have thought it was son.
Well,
I got Snacks and Paul C. and Woolly Beck. And hello, Lori. Science Gal Aquatics. Thank you guys for coming in. And of course, Chevy.
hey, Chevy. Well,
Get your shipment in today. Lincoln is saying, do you get your shipment in today? Are you aware of what he's asking?
who?
Lincoln Webb is asking, do you get your shipment in today?
Oh, well, I got a shipment in Tuesday. I'm not getting anything today. It's kind of an off week.
What did you get? Did you get fish on Tuesday?
Yeah, I did. Not very much. I didn't bother doing unboxing with it. We got some shovel nose catfish. I don't even remember what else. So a few rummy nose. Not a lot, just a little bit of stuff.
You're like me. I have trouble even remembering what I had for dinner 2 nights ago. We've got a couple new people just coming in. Do you have any experience with Woolly's saying black line tail tetras? Does he mean black line or black skirt?
Black line tail. I don't know what that means.
I'm familiar with black.
Black skirt. Yeah, flagfish, but that's not a tetra.
Well, black skirt tetra is a tetra. I don't know about.
Right, that is. No, just trying to think of something else for the black line.
Can you
Black,
clarify, Wooly?
yeah.
All righty. Tree 77. And Emily.
377 tried to get on this Discord and never showed up in the in the vestibule.
Johan would like to know, what's your favorite fish? I know what I think it is. He's saying loaches, plecos, live bears, angels. Do you have a favorite fish, Father Fish?
You know, actually, I have some fish that I really cherish. Fish like abbas, uaru.
Yeah.
Those are fish I've had over the years. I don't have either one of them right now. Of the fish I have right now, I just got some pupfish, some of the Gulf pupfish, and I'm real excited about those because I bred them a couple of years ago, and I'm hoping to be able to do that again.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I've got a bunch of those. I have enough to be able to sell some. So anybody who's interested in the pupfish, I will sell them. I also got some, what's the other one I got? The Everglade, the Elosoma Everglade. I've got some of those to sell as well. I don't know. I don't know that I have a favorite fish. They're kind of all my favorites, I guess. You know,
we've had this question before, and I've said,
yeah, we've had it many times, and I try to answer it, by picking up one fish or another. I just kind of like them all.
I think you like the Florida natives.
I like the Florida natives because I can go catch them and keep them and raise them, and that's a real exciting kind of thing to do. But there are other fish I really enjoy too, and some of the real extreme oddballs. I've had a lot of them. It's part of the reason I decided to do this shop, so I could get. I would have a way of being able to procure and have for a little while some of the really remarkable fish. I remember Henry Hall. This kind of an interesting question, and he had a curious answer for it. His when he turned 80, the age I am, that's when he decided to give up fish. And I can understand why. I mean, it gets to be a real burden, just the labor involved. And his system was pretty labor intensive. Plus, he had been doing it his entire life. He got his first tank from his father when he was about 5 years old. And he kept that tank. It was a brass tank, about a 3-gallon brass tank. He gave it to me, and then I donated it to an aquarium museum that what's the big ZoomEd? The owner of ZoomEd has built an aquarium museum, and he was real interested in it. So I donated it. I did that so it wouldn't wind up on a trash heap somewhere, because old things like that get lost if they're not protected. And I thought that was a way to protect it. And it has the story of how I came by it with it. So anyway, Henry Hall said to me when he was getting rid of all his fish, he gave me his entire collection of fish, which we turned over to the National Aquarium before they were built. So they actually went into the Baltimore Science Center. The Science Center, they built a big display that, and today have a really magnificent aquatic display in the Science Center dedicated to Henry Hall. He wanted, before he got rid of his last tank, which was a 4-foot cube that he had made. Well, that's, what's that? Four fours or 16, 64, 4 times 64. So I don't know how big that is.
Do math in your head.
And big. It's about 300 gallons. Big tank. He said there were some fish he wanted to have because they'd never been able to get them. And there were only 2. One was the abba, and the other was the paddlefish. He had never had either. So I helped him. I was able to locate an abba. We got an abba for him. And he had that. He only really wanted to have it long enough to feed it a few times, and then he was happy. He was able to let it move on. We never were able to get a paddlefish. I did get some years later. But again, that's another one I'd love to be able to get again. I just haven't found a source for them, although I understand they're available. So it's kind of that way with me. There's some things I like to have. Now, all of the killies, I've only had a few of the killies. I like the killies a lot, but I don't think I want to get 100 pairs of killies, all different species, and set them all up. I might. I mean, things are going to change here by spring pretty dramatically. I've been talking more with Rick Hahn, owner of Catoctin Mountain Zoological Park, and he wants to set up a major display and would like me to come in and be a part of it. It'll be a huge 3,000 square foot greenhouse with all kind of animals in it, including aquatic stuff. So what my plan is to set up some aquatic demo systems that will be a balanced aquariums, balanced systems, and really promote that, demonstrate that, and promote that to the general public, and also do our YouTube from that location. So that's in the offing. We've spoken twice, and it's been very positive. We're going to get together shortly, and then I'll get them down here, and we'll make a decision as to how much of the stuff I've got here in the shop can be used up there, and then we'll start doing a transition. I'm going to need a lot of help to do it, but we'll see how it goes. So, pardon?
So where is that going to go?
In Thurmont, Maryland, just outside of Frederick, which is about an hour and a half north of Baltimore. It's northwest of Baltimore. It's actually due north of D.C., Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice area. I lived there some years ago. That's where I met Rick back in the 60s. So we've been friends for a long, long time. So I'm excited about that transition. I've been wanting to get out of the shop for a while, and it was curious. I thought of I had a vision over the weekend about this, and I tried to call Rick. Finally got through to him to talk to him about trying to do something at the zoo. And he said, I'm glad you called. I've got something I want to talk to you about. And it was the same thing I wanted to talk to him about.
Well, that's good.
So we were on the same page
Yeah.
right away. And I think we're both real excited about it. I know I certainly am. And it'll help him with a project that he's been trying to get off the ground. So anyway, there's all that stuff going on. What's happening? Yeah, go ahead.
Lincoln would like to know if you have any peacock bass.
Yes, I do. I have rainbow and Timensis, but they're big. I've got the smallest ones I have are about 8 inches. I don't have any little ones.
Okay. Well, how much are they? And I guess are they listed in your shop?
Well, they're really not shippable at that size. I would not risk trying to ship an 8-inch fish in a box for 3 days. It would not survive.
No, you don't think so?
No, I know it wouldn't. I'm certain of it.
How do they ship the koi then and the large goldfish?
Overnight.
Yeah, I would be worried about it.
Right. I could do it overnight, but it'll cost a lot of money. It'll be a couple of $100
More
at
than the
least
fish is worth, I'm sure.
to do that. A lot more than the fish is worth. I should be able to get little ones in. I will make an effort to do that. I've been able to get them in the past. We'll try again. I do have a contact for them, so we'll see if we can do something. What else? What else we got?
Well, we have a few things. J-Dog has a couple things, and Joe was asking a question as well.
Yeah, J-Dog, I need him. I need you to call me. I've got a problem with my AdSense account, and I need to talk to somebody who might understand it better because I don't get it. I can't access it. But what's J-Dog's questions?
Well, he had a statement. He said, I treated my betta with the father fish method of 1 drop per gallon of methine blue and a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of the Epsom salt. I'm not aware of that method, so maybe you can enlighten us.
Did he have any results yet? Is the fish better?
Yeah. Let's see. I like the treatment better than the directions on the bottle. That's all he said. But do you recall recommending that? Because I don't.
Oh yeah, some time ago.
Hearing that.
We talked about doing it for I don't remember. It was some other fish. It wasn't bettas, but we did get into it. I was treating rice fish for fungus. And finally was able to cure it. I think it was actually the Epsom salts that finally knocked it off of them. Plus getting the temperature out and doing the method. We just did a number of things, and that's the one that finally worked. Temperature helps. I see Stephen is chiming in here, so
yes, was
helpful
asking
advice too. Yeah.
why were you doing that for fungi, and I didn't see a response. Let's see here. But then he had a question. He said, does activated carbon still count as activated if it's 6 months old?
In the tank or not in the tank?
Well, I assume you're using it. When does it stop being activated? If you're
about an hour after it's put in the tank, typically. When it doesn't
put it in their filter.
It absorbs material. It absorbs water. It's super dry wood that is totally devoid of any living matter. It's essentially concentrated ash that has not gone through the final burn stage, and so it's it's super dry. When you put it in water, it absorbs water. And whatever it absorbs is what it absorbs. And it will hold in whatever chemicals are flowing through. It kind of traps them in its cell structure. It's it's burned cell structure. It's dead cell structure, if you will. So it'll trap minerals and metals and toxins and so forth. But it only holds certain amount, and it holds it based on the temperature at which it is kilned. If it's the Japanese charcoal, which is killed at about 2,000 degrees, is a higher cost carbon. It'll hold more, but at a given point in time, it can't hold anymore, and it's at that point really worthless as an absorbent, as something to remove chemicals, minerals, uh, metals, and so forth out of the water. So it has limited use. 6 months in the tank, it certainly has no use.
So to follow up with that and what you said, I guess the question is, how do you determine when it gets like clogged up and stops being, usable, I guess?
Yeah,
When
I
do
don't
you replace it?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it?
I would say monthly, but
Yeah, if you're using it routinely, you want to change it out every month, maybe even every week.
right.
If it's a cheap charcoal, it isn't going to last more than a day or two. A better quality might last a week or more, but it does not last long. And it's really worthless to use it for that purpose when you can do water changes and achieve the same result.
I've used it and I really liked using it at the time, but I no longer add it anymore. I don't know why. I just stopped.
Well, it's an expense, and it's a kind of a meaningless one. I mean, there are things you can use it for. You can put it in a filter that has green water, and it'll take a lot of it out. A lot of it out. Diatomaceous earth will do the same thing. That'll take it out too. If you have a surface for it to cling to, um, there are a lot of ways to do things that a lot of different ways to do things. I guess that's the best way to put
I
it.
got it in bulk, so it was in I still have the container, but
Yeah, you can get large quantities of it.
and
Yeah,
it's mixed with diatomaceous earth. So I should have probably used that in my substrate, but didn't think about it.
yeah. Again, same thing. I mean, in a substrate, it'll act as an irrigator for the dirt, in that it's larger and more granular.
So you have a few more questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Joe Braddock was wondering, just started fish keeping aside, got 1 betta and 6 neons. Is there anything I need to know to keep my tank healthy? And he says, thanks for the videos.
Anything I need to know to keep my tank healthy? Well, not knowing anything about your tank, there's no way to know where to start.
Some generic advice, maybe.
Generic advice. Uh, Whatever you're feeding, feed less. And make sure you've got a deep substrate. Keep the temperature up to 82 degrees. And whatever you're feeding, feed less. Make sure you have a deep substrate and keep the temperature up to 82 degrees. Put plants in your tank. Plants help balance the tank. They make the water more pure. They make the fish more comfortable, and they provide a certain level of nutrition. In addition to which, They remove things like ammonia and nitrates from the water. Plants are really important. Whatever you're feeding, feed less.
Would
Like
you suggest, what would you suggest for lighting? There was an interesting thought out there about doing more intensity for less time, or like a less intense light for more time.
well, if you're talking about intense, the only light I'm aware of that is intense is natural sunlight. And by that, I don't mean ambient light. I mean the light coming direct from the sun's rays, penetrating the water. That's intense light. And if a plant, a pond, a fish, a body of water, even shallow water, can tolerate the direct rays of the sun
Yeah.
12 hours a day, there's not a chance at all that you're going to have too much light going in your tank. You may not have adequate plants to deal with the nitrates and phosphates and CO2, whatever, in your tank, but you're certainly not going to have too much light. Personally, I believe the whole conversation about lights is ridiculous. You can buy a $10 light, a $10 4-foot strip light, an LED, and put it on a 55-gallon tank. 2 of them will be adequate light for that tank, more than adequate. One of them is split between a couple of 29s, and it's adequate light. Any light at all is adequate if you leave it on long enough. If if you have a low light source, leave it on permanently, particularly with LEDs. Low light LEDs, just never turn them off. It's not going to cost you anything to do that, and it's not going to create a problem in the tank. I have probably a dozen or more tanks where the light has been on permanently, in one case for 4 or 5 years, in other cases for a year or two. If you start getting algae, it's because there are not enough other kinds of plants in there to compete with the algae. So get some other plants in the tank, and you won't have algae. Algae is not the first plant to grab nutrition. The higher order plants are, but if they're not in the tank, they're not going to be able to do anything. So higher order plants will do a better job than algae will of controlling nutrients in the water column. You just have to have them in the tank is all. And you have to have them in adequate numbers. I saw a tank recently. Somebody said, "How do you like this?" It was, I don't know, about a 29-gallon tank. It had 2 sprigs of plant in it. 2 sprigs, 2 little tiny plants, about 6 inches. Is that enough plants? That isn't even the beginning of enough plants. Your tank should be thick with plants, thick enough that they are a significant part of the environment. You would not put one fish an inch long in a 50-gallon tank or even a 30-gallon tank. You wouldn't do it. So don't put one plant 3 inches long in a 29-gallon tank and expect you're going to achieve anything. You won't. You need to get enough plants to you don't want to glom it solid chock full, but you want enough in there so that they can begin growing. Plants grow in the presence of other plants. They do much better as a group than as an individual. If you have one plant here, one plant here, one plant here, it's a good chance they're going to die. or at least they will languish. If you put them all together, then they're going to grow. Funny thing about plants, they're very social creatures. They like they like each other's company, and they do better in each other's company. So plant your plants by the clump. If you have a bunch that you buy, put them all in together. Don't take them apart. You can spread them a little, but put them all in together. Get bunches of them going. It's kind of the Dutch system. You want groups of plants, not individual ones kind of spread out. They don't get COVID. They don't need 6 feet of separation. What else?
Yeah. Well, Johannes would like to know, what is your take on a bottled startup using, the bacteria,
Yeah, I saw that. Oh, gee.
which they usually recommend when you have a new tank and you're starting it up and you want to add some bacteria to kickstart the system?
Yeah, that's a valid thing to do. The bacteria in a bottle, though, is different. Bacteria in a bottle is anaerobic. It is not aerobic bacteria. So the minute you pour that into the tank, what you're actually pouring in is essentially dead material that has to go through the process of deteriorating and creating bacteria in order. So you're kind of you're starting at the wrong end. The best way to culture start a tank is with a layer of sand, gravel, whatever, from an existing tank. And if you don't have any, ask your fish store to give you, if they've got a nice tank, to give you a little bit. It doesn't take much, just a little bit of sand or gravel or whatever they've got from an existing tank, and then sprinkle that lightly on the top of your tank. That works better than anything else. If you also can bring in driftwood, rocks, other hardscape plants, all of those things from existing tanks, from other tanks, and bring them into your system, you're going to be bringing bacteria in that way as well. And don't be afraid to bring water in from an existing tank. Now, I know everybody recommends you never put water that's in the bag with your fish in your tank. And I think it depends entirely on where that water comes from. Entirely. If you know it's coming out of your friend's fish tank and he's got a healthy tank, by all means, put it in your new tank, because it's going to be bringing life in that's in that water that will help culture your tank. So, no, I do not approve of bottled bacteria. I think, frankly, it's like bagged live sand. It's dead sand. It's not live sand. It's anaerobic. It's not aerobic. And if you sprinkle it on your tank to create live culture, all you're doing is peeing in your tank and waiting around for 30 days for all that ammonia you've dumped in there to be converted to nitrates, I should say. Better to start at the end of the process by putting live culture in, not dead live culture.
Well, knowing that plants do enjoy being, fed from ammonia, the plants might like that then.
Yeah, but that's a slow process. They don't gobble it all up in an hour.
Right.
It can take weeks or months for a plant to substantially reduce the ammonia level in a tank. Don't depend on that to control ammonia. It will control it in very, very minuscule amounts. if you put a huge amount of ammonia, if a fish dies and you miss it and leave it in there, or whatever happens, plants aren't going to be able to clear that up in the first day or two. It's going to take them a long time to do it. So don't depend on that. Don't feel like, you can start out with a heavily ammoniated tank and expect it's going to be cleared up by a bunch of plants in the first day or two. It will not.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Yeah. Well, J-Dog just followed up saying he just noticed his betta fish was sick, so he only just started treating it last night.
Oh, okay. And what is the sickness? Did he say?
My chat just jumped. I lost it, but I don't think. Just said doesn't look better or worse. He just saw a sick fish. So no, he did not say. And that was at 9:21. So,
Oh, I can't eat that.
Yeah.
I'm diabetic,
All right.
number one, and I'm keto. Number,
I'll eat more.
Chase, right? Our newest helper here, Chase. Come say hello. This is Chase. Just get right here. Get down in the picture. So
hello.
there he is. That's Chase. Chase just started with us yesterday, and he brought some Dunkin' Donuts in.
Oh no. Yeah, we've been trying to get Father Fish off of sugar. I think he's been doing a good job because he looks like he's slimmed down a little.
I've lost about 5 pounds finally, so it's starting to work. I've been keto for a couple of weeks.
It'll work if you cut out sugar.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing?
I guess I don't know. I don't know if Thomas is coming. Yeah, I haven't heard from him. I don't know how his foot's doing. If you want to get started on the birds,
okay,
that'd probably be the best thing to get going on. Get them squared away.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
It helps if you use like Cassie B in the chat, and then I can see your stuff.
Oh, I like this. This is interesting. David Samsel. I love it. I love it. Stephen, I've had the mystery snails up to 3,000 TDS. Damn, that's salt water. That's hard, with no apparent effects.
Wow.
Well, Stephen does have a report on this. His lab did a study on the effects of high TDS, which I'm sure he'll be reviewing here in the chat. But they did discover there are effects, and they're not minor. 3,000 blows my mind a little. I've had that saltwater level. I've had mine get up to about 400, 450, with no obvious no visible ill effects. But I brought it back down. I didn't let it stay up there. I think anything over 200, 250 is something you probably ought to control. Probably ought to try to get it back down. But we'll see what Stephen's got to say about it.
I agree. Yeah, my TDS is normally around 170.
Yeah, that's pretty normal for most water here in Florida.
Well, coming out of the tap, obviously it's not that high.
Lincoln wants to know if we're hiring. We're not hiring. We needed some help getting some things done. So we got a few part-time guys in helping us out, but I wish I had the money to hire. I'm not making enough money here to pay myself, much less anybody else.
Yeah, and Joey and I volunteer, so we can be replaced easily.
Really.
Stephen had a question.
No, actually, it's the opposite. Volunteers are very hard to replace.
They're hard to get rid of.
I've lost 2 volunteers recently that I came to absolutely depend on here at the shop, and I we are suffering their loss.
Oh, who did you lose? Did you lose Betsy?
Betsy, yeah.
What happened with Betsy? I missed.
Well, she works at her local church and is more and more involved there. And with COVID, it's become kind of overwhelming. She does grief counseling, among other things, and that's pretty emotional stuff to handle. So she was kind of getting overwhelmed with that.
Okay.
And is also, I think, doing the parish newsletter.
Well, Stephen had a comment right above the one where you mentioned the mystery snails, and he was commenting on the lighting.
Yes, what did you say?
He said, we used the cheapest lights out there. We had over 800 tanks in the lab, and we had to buy smart. As the head of the aquatic veterinarian that he is or was, I only had a monthly budget of $5,000. So they went cheap.
Well, yeah. Oh, here's J-Dog. The fish has a white fungus on its head. Yeah, it's probably an injury that has bacteria in it, and the bacteria has killed some of the flesh, and the fungus is growing on that dead flesh. Very important to understand. If you see fungus, there is an underlying cause for the fungus. Fungus does not grow on living matter. It grows on dead matter. You know, a fungus growing on a rotting log is growing on a rotting log. It's not growing on a tree. There are some animals that grow on the sides of trees, but they're not growing on living matter. They may be attached, but that's not what they're feeding off of. Fungus feeds on dead matter. So if you have fungus, it doesn't make any sense at all to treat for fungus. There's no treatment for it anyway. You treat for the bacteria that's underlying it. The bacteria is the problem. So you want to kill that bacteria. So things like methylene blue, which is bactericide, that can help. There are others. Any of the dyes, acroplavin, malachite green, methylene blue, they all work. They all are antibacterial, have antibacterial properties. Beyond that, there are maricides and other sulfa drugs that have antibacterial properties. I've found that Epsom salts helps. I don't know quite why, but it seems to. If I use it in very small portions, very small doses, I don't dump a tablespoon of Epsom salts into a gallon of water. I don't use near that much. Maybe the tip of a teaspoon. I'm pleased to see Stephen's support on the light issue. You know, and it really is a matter of that. I mean, light is light. There are different spectrums of light, to be sure, but any light that's visible has spectrum that's going to be helpful and beneficial. Obviously, you can go nuts and you can buy wide spectrum or specific spectrum bulbs, and that's nice. I'm not sure how helpful it is. I know that blue light in corals makes them glow, and that's really pretty. They iridesce. Having light that causes things to iridesce makes them very pretty and fascinating to watch. I'm not sure what the value of it is in terms of the health of the animal or the system. But I do know that I can maintain tanks with very basic lighting and pretty simple lighting and not particularly strong lighting. So if I leave it on long enough, and long enough might be never turning it off. I don't think light. I think what's a big deal about light is having it, and not having it is not a good idea if you want to have a balanced tank. If you want to have plant growth, if you want plant growth, you got to have light, and you're going to have very powerful, intense light to the point where you're spending an enormous amount of money to buy the fixture and to pay the electric bill. Um, I have friends who have raised coral that way. They've also raised coral with little cheap shop lights, and they do as well with one as the other. So you tell me. What else? What else we got here, Cassie B?
Well, hopefully I didn't miss anything, but we've got Chris Trapp at 9:20. I'm sorry, guys, I am kind of far back, but I've just been trying to get stuff after you've been talking, Father Fish, and not miss anything. Chris Trapp says, what do you think of using crushed coral and gravel as a hardness buffer in the deep substrate?
Look, gravel is, depending on what its composition is not going to be a buffer. It can help with irrigation. If you've got it in with more compacted dirt, it'll help to aerate that dirt. So that's a good thing. It's not going to really buffer anything. Crushed coral, crushed oyster shell certainly will. Anything that has that releases carbonates is going to. My beard is being weird. Oh, excuse me. Anything that releases carbonates is going to buffer the water. So that's very much to the good. What else?
Well, so if it's mixed in with sand and all you have is sand in your aquarium and you've got a good amount, is it going to buffer?
Well, sure. It's and in time it will capture enough waste to begin forming essentially a soil base, a nutrient base. It's not going to have much of a nutrient base in the beginning. It's not going to have any.
Right.
That's why I prefer to use dirt. It's not critical. It's not absolutely necessary. It's simply a way to kind of kickstart that system and to provide a long-term nourishment to the system. Based on anaerobic properties, based on it being a deep source of nutrition, source of elemental nutrition, if you will, and source of being able to break down. There's the man with the bad foot. How's it feeling?
Better.
Good.
I'm not sure if I understand.
We'll say hello, Thomas. Thomas just walked in.
Hi.
There's more orders.
I know one of them is. Yeah, that one is. That's new.
Chris, did that answer?
I just wanted to double check and make sure that's who we sent the bug to. I don't remember. Could you check my AdSense account? Apparently, I'm not getting money from the beginning, from last February.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can.
I try to get on, they won't let me on.
Well, same thing as all the other accounts. We'll have to figure out what emails associated and go from there. So we can figure it out. It's just going to be a little bit of an endeavor. Let me get these guys to bed.
Yep.
So real quick, are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
So real quick, so Chris was saying what does the crushed coral have an effect for a hardness buffer? So I would say just adding it in with a sand or gravel, like that's what its purpose is to serve, is to
Yeah, you can also you can also use it as a cap. Put it on top of the sand. You mix it in with the sand and mix it in with the gravel. Wherever you put it, as water flows over it, it will dissolve very, very slowly, but it will dissolve. And when it dissolves, it releases carbonates. So that acts as a buffer in the water.
Yeah. And it's also adding filters for that reason.
Yeah, right.
So there we go. And then he would like to know, how do you run the turtle tank? I guess the substrate in your turtle tank.
Well,
I know this, but I'm gonna wait and see what you say.
It's Thomas ought to answer this. He's got a big turtle tank.
You want me to?
You want to talk about it? Yeah.
Substrate for turtle tanks?
Yeah, exactly.
6 inches of sand.
Just stick your face there and talk about
About that much sand. And then if what I've done in the past is do my like nutritious substrate and my plants down in the sump. So I'll do like the potting soil with like 2 inches of sand in a sump with baffles. And then in the main tank with the turtles, I just have like legitimately 6 inches of sand. And with the fact that they're probably going to stir it up, I don't really care because it's all sand. It still acts as a filter though. That's my advice. That's what we did here with our big tank is it's legitimately almost 12 inches of sand on one side and about 6 inches on the other. But it allows everything to get collected in the sand and not just float in the water. So a little bit cleaner way of doing it. I do think a high flow rate is beneficial for turtles, but obviously there's an extent to that too. So do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, where that tank is getting too much light and doesn't have enough plants.
It doesn't have any plants.
And the water's turning green. Throw some plants in there.
All right.
I think that will help straighten that out.
Duckweed.
You can do duckweed.
If we got too much light, duckweed's the perfect thing.
Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, plants in with the turtles as well. They didn't do that with this one, and the water's turning green for obvious reasons. I've been cutting off the lights, but that's not the solution. The solution is plants. Plants, and more plants. You can never have too many plants. The more plants you have, the more fish you can have. That's the rule. You want a lot of fish, you got to have a lot of plants. More plants, more fish. Like that. Do not skimp on plants. Don't do it. Put adequate plants in there. You want to have a lot of plants. There's some people for whom 1 or 2 plants is a lot. That's not a lot. That's a little. 1 or 2 plants, unless they're great, big, huge Amazon mother plants, that's not a lot of plants. One little bunch of stalk plants, the stem plants, is not adequate for anything other than a bed bowl. It's not adequate for a 5-gallon tank, much less a 10-gallon. Here's try this. A 10-gallon tank. In a 10-gallon tank, if I want to plant it out, I will put 5 to 6 bunches of plants. I will put some Anubias or Java fern attached to wood or rock. I will put some small swords or other small rooted plants, and perhaps like chain sword. I like chain sword or Vallisneria. Corkscrew val always looks nice. Like a dozen or so corkscrew val. That would be like 2 bunches of corkscrew val. 5 or 6 bunches of stem plants. Maybe some water wisteria or what's the other one? Water wisteria, water sprite. Thank you. No duckweed. Try to keep the duckweed out.
I don't mind duckweed, but
I know it covers the top.
I don't
But
have
in
that
other words, yeah, the idea is to have enough plants in there that it looks well planted to begin with, not just one or two in hopes they're going to take over and run everything. They probably won't. They'll probably die out. The more plants you have in a new tank, the better off that tank is going to be, and the better the plants are going to do. Now, obviously, they need nutrition, but if you've got, if you've got a deep sand bed with soil as a base, and you're planting those plants halfway down in the sand, the root systems will find nutrition. They'll get down in there a little deeper, and they'll be able to find something to eat. You're also going to be, you're going to have fish in there. Fish produce waste. Whether you're feeding them or not, they produce waste. That waste nurtures plants. It gets down into the sand, into the substrate, and provides nutrition for plants. You've got to have both. Don't try to do a planted tank without fish. You have to have fish in there. Otherwise, they're not going to get any nutrition. It comes from the fish. It's a chain. It's a balanced system. You have to have all of the elements in place for it to be alive. I had somebody in yesterday. Wanted to know what was wrong with their goldfish pond. I said, well, what do you mean? It's got this thick slime on the top. Never had a thick slime. I've had it for years. Never had a thick slime on it. And I've been dosing it, he says. But now I got this dosing. What are you dosing with? Well, I get algae. And I have to kill the algae. Aha. You see what he did? So I said to him, here's what you've done. You have killed 50% of the life cycle in that system. So it's impossible for the other 50% to thrive. It's hitting a wall, a chemical wall. And as a result, it's dying and forming this thick slime at the top. What you've got is a dead pond. Very simple. He said, well, what do I do about it? I said, it's very simple. Turn the hose on, throw it in the pond, and walk away for at least a day. He has a big enough pond. He can do that. Water change it. Rinse the whole thing out. Start over again with it. Do a substantial water change. First thing you have to do is get rid of that chemical and then never use it again, because all it does is kill stuff. And you don't want to kill stuff. You want to keep stuff alive, not kill stuff. If you have a problem with one thing taking over, do something with something alive to deal with that. Don't poison it. We've got this stupid notion that if something goes wrong in a tank, we need to throw poison in it. That's outrageous. It's fundamentally outrageous to do such a thing. My God. Don't do it. Moving right along.
Okay. What TJs would like to know, is it safe to move plants from a farm pond? He did see some nice hair grass in there, but he's worried about bringing disease and fungus in if he does that.
Do you see disease and fungus in the farm pond? Examine the farm pond carefully. Look at it. Look at the fish in it. Catch some if you need to. Make sure they're healthy. Make sure there's no visible disease in there. And then by all means, bring those plants in and plant them with the dirt. The likelihood of you bringing parasites or disease is a number approaching zero. It is infinitely difficult to do that unless you have a foul condition to begin with. Your tank will overcome whatever microscopic dangerous thing might be brought in. Here's the key. bacteria. Bacteria becomes a problem when it takes over an environment. It takes over an environment when there is far too much nutrition in that environment, and the animal life and the other aerobic activity that's there can't deal with it all, and it begins to rot. That rot is bacteria breaking it down. If it's a substantial amount, it will rot it substantially and create a blossom, a bloom of bacteria. That's when bacteria becomes a problem. If you bring bacteria on a plant and you put it in your tank, all you're really doing is increasing the variety of life in that tank, which is highly beneficial to its ability to sustain itself. Monoculture is never sustainable. Having a single thing, a single living thing, no other living thing, that one single living thing in your tank is not sustainable. If you have a fish and you love that fish and you keep that fish in an absolutely sterile environment, nothing else alive in that tank, and you change that water day after day, minute after minute, second after second, so nothing ever lives in there, and you pour toxins in it to make sure you're killing any other life, what's going to happen? It's going to happen. That fish is going to die. It's going to die, right. Your water is going to crash. The fish is going to die.
And you're probably going to get a bacteria that will kill your fish.
That's exactly right, because it'll be a monoculture. You'll get one bacteria in there that'll go, wow, what a place. And they'll go, and explode in the tank.
That's how I got hole in the head with my betta fish.
Yeah, there you go.
When I early on kept bettas in a sterile bowl.
That's exactly right. The more culture, the more living matter, the wider the range of living matter. Let me do it this way, just to try to help understand. I've mentioned GARF, G-A-R-F. Don't know if they even exist anymore. 20 years ago, they were the biggest thing in aquaculture. And for 10, 15, almost 20 years, they remained such. The owner died. Her husband tried to carry on. I think it's become less and less presence on the web. I'll just put it that way. But what they were doing, they were gathering soil, dirt, mud, bacterial culture from literally all over the world and culturing it in their systems, such that they had a culture that was some of the richest bioculture in the world. It provided an ability to sustain long-term living culture that simply did not break down, did not overwhelm the system. It created, the more they had, the better the balance was. And with substantial amounts of culture, they found that the richest bacterial culture anywhere in the world was the mangrove swamps in Australia. And they brought mud up from the mangrove swamps in Australia, as well as from every place else they could get to in the world. And they put it all together, and they sold this, what they referred to as miracle mud. That was really the foundational study for understanding what dirted tanks are all about. The more bacteria, the more varieties of bacteria you have in your system, the healthier and better balanced that system is going to be. What else you got, Cass?
I wasn't done listening.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Observations? Go ahead.
Can you suggest anything for fin rot for a betta fish? Ashu, is that how you say it? Is trying to stabilize the tank. He has a single betta and a 15-gallon planted tank.
And it's got fin rot.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing to do is take it out of the tank, put it in a clean bowl. Do not feed it. No food of any kind. You need to kill the bacteria. The fin rot is being caused by bacteria attacking it. If it's happening in your planted tank, you're overfeeding, and you've got a bacteria bloom that has attacked the fins of the fish. Here's the problem with bettas, angels as well. Any fish that has very long flowing fins, there is little to no blood flow going through those fins. They function osmotically. They don't function by vessels. There's no blood flow. There's osmotic attraction. There are the cells attached to each other, joined to each other, and fluids flow through those cells. Excuse me. And around and among those cells. So as a result, there's very little healing property in a fin, such that if it becomes damaged or if it's attacked by bacteria, the fish has very little way of fighting that. You have to do it for it. What I usually do is I will treat it topically. I'll take the fish out and I will apply medication to the spots where that fin rot is. I'll treat it directly, topically. You can do it with any of the dyes, methylene blue, malachite green, or aquaflavin. You can use sulfa drugs. You can use Maricin. Yeah, any of the other antibacterial, broad spectrum antibacterial property medications directly on the fish, and then separate it out and put it in a clean container where there's no food, no chance of getting any more bacterial growth attacking it. And then take a look at your tank and see what's causing that to occur. You're probably feeding pellets. Pellets contain vegetable matter, which the fish will eat, but they can't digest, and so it'll foul the water. You're probably overfeeding. You're probably putting substantially more food in there than is required. If you're not feeding live food and in tiny portions, you're polluting the tank. I'll just put it that way. If you're feeding pellets, chances are you're polluting the tank, because those pellets likely have material in them that the fish is incapable of digesting. It's not simply a matter of the food that's uneaten. It's the food that's eaten and not digested, that's pooped out as waste, that fouls the water. So they can eat every bit you put in there, but if they're not able to digest it, it's going to be harmful. So substantial amounts of that can cause a bacterial bloom, just as we've been describing. Fungus on a fish, fin rot, which we call fungus, is bacteria attacking the fins because the fins don't have a whole lot of ability to fight that off. You have to treat it topically, kill the bacteria, and then keep it in an environment where until it heals, give it a chance to heal before you put it back in a in a tank that has that may have the properties in it to further attack that fin. Give it a chance to heal first. What else you got, Cass?
Well, I was wondering, can they get fin rot if they're not overfeeding? Maybe just the betta needs like a different water requirement, like a lower pH.
I'm going to say no. Obviously there are things that can happen, but overfeeding is universally the cause of explosive bacteria in a tank. I mean, it could be a pound of dead fish that would cause it, but there's no likelihood that that's happening in that tank. From what was described, unless there's other dead matter, not vegetation. Dead vegetation does not cause harmful bacteria blooms. Dead flesh, dead animal matter is what causes that harmful bacteria bloom, which includes things like waste product from a fish, excessive waste product, excessive material that the fish can eat. Now, we back up a little bit. If you've got a tank and you throw a bunch of rotten vegetation in there, it's going to foul the water. So I shouldn't say it cannot cause bacteria. I'm saying you've got living plants and a leaf or two dying. That's not going to cause a problem. A substantial amount of rotten vegetation certainly will. So barring that, barring a big dead fish, there are very few options left for an explosive bacterial growth. It could be an injury. The fish can receive an injury and then get a bacterial infection following the injury. That's certainly a reasonable possibility. Again, taking it out, treating it, giving it a chance to heal, is the way you're gonna have to deal with that.
Also, maybe too high of a flow rate, because I know betta fish probably don't appreciate a high flow.
They don't appreciate a low flow. Bettas want to be in absolutely still water. You don't find bettas in creeks, streams, rivers. You don't find them in springs. You find them in rain pools. You find them in rice paddies.
So
you find them in dead still water. I'm having
a little bit of betta fish. The tail's getting a little ragged looking. I wouldn't say it's fin rot. I'm not sure. But I'm thinking about
yeah. Well, that can certainly happen. They particularly with a lot of fins. They don't want to have to fight against the current.
Yeah, he goes to like the non-current side and hangs out there, but every now and then goes back to the other side. And I lowered it down, but it's still pretty strong.
Oh,
I would be curious
all right.
if it comes back.
We're running over here. What else? We have anything else that we should? Pardon?
Yeah, we're at 10:15. We had a few more questions. Hopefully, if you don't mind answering a couple of these.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, J-Dog is asking, is triple sulfa, or what is triple sulfa? Sorry. And how does it differ from methylene blue and a word I can't pronounce?
Well, it's sulfa is not a dye. Excuse me.
Isn't it an antibiotic just like
An
Neosporin?
antibiotic, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly right. The triple sulfa is simply three different kinds of sulfa that attack a broader spectrum of bacteria, gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. Um, not all pharmaceuticals attack all forms of bacteria. They're different kinds of bacteria, so you need what's called a broad spectrum bacteria to reach the widest range of back. Now, here's the problem: you dump a bunch of that stuff in your fish tank, you're killing off the good with the bad. So you want to not do that. You always want to take the fish out and treat it. And on rare occasions, I will treat a tank with like a sulfa drug. I do it gingerly. I do it in very small amounts, and I do it only if there are a whole lot of fish in that tank that are affected, where I see like fungus growing or bacterial growth. Then I'll treat the whole tank, but I won't treat it heavily. I'll treat it lightly. I never put a great deal in because I don't want to kill the tank.
So I'm just really not sure. Are you using a powder or can you use like Neosporin?
I use, well, you can, yeah. The powder will work better, I think. You can use Neosporin. It certainly works. Take the fish out and put it on. Don't worry about leaving the fish out for up to a minute or so. That's not going to hurt it. It'll be fine. So leave it out long enough for that Neosporin to at least get down into it a little bit, because once you put it in the tank, it's going to come off. A residual will remain on it if you've given it a chance to kind of work its way down into the wound. Powder will attach a little better.
Right. I just have not seen the triple sulfa powder under that name, triple sulfa. So
sulfathiazole. I'm sorry, I keep saying zone. It's sulfathiazole. It's generally available in the fish stores.
That's what J-Dog was asking. So triple sulfa is sulfathiazole?
That's a form of sulfa drug, yeah, of wide spectrum sulfa. So the triple sulfa is a particular formulation by a particular company. So I don't know that it has the identical properties as all of these names are names given the chemical by the manufacturer that's producing them according to their formula. So they vary, because the formula varies, and the names are usually copyrighted names.
Yeah. Could you recommend just maybe doing more water changes before doing that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I recommend doing a little dye, doing some salt. I prefer Epsom salts, doing water changes. But the issue is if you've got a fungus on your fish, doing water changes is not going to cure that fungus. It's not going to get rid of that bacteria because the bacteria is attacking the flesh. You need to deal with that specific issue. So you need to treat that bacteria on that fish directly. And the best way to do that is topically. But I would always remove the fish and put it in a hospital tank. Put it in a bare bottom, straight, pure water environment that doesn't have anything else to compound the issue with, and treat it, and then Do not put food in there. Don't do anything to add to the problem. Just leave it pure. That fish can go for weeks with no food and no ill effects. You want to get the problem fixed first. Then you can put it back in your tank or try feeding it there, whatever. But get the sickness dealt with before you try to feed the fish.
Okay.
Are we down to it here? What else you got?
Rohan wanted to know about the fatty foods. I think he remembers you saying that they're not good for fish.
Any
So
kind of
elaborate
animal fat. Yeah, any kind of like mammalian fat, beef heart, anything like that. But fish, bird, those kinds of fats are fine. You know, the fish is able to break them down. If hot dogs, okay, never feed hot dogs to your fish. Hot dogs contain fat that are not processed by the fish, and when they eat it and poop it out, it will form a thick coating at the surface of your tank, preventing oxygen from coming in. It'll make a mess. And that's if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, it'll simply kill everything. So animal fat is the problem, not fish fat, bird fat. Those are okay. But beef heart. That's why it'll feed beef heart anymore. Because the bird thing is really better. Chicken is better.
Yeah.
It's better quality, better. It's easier to deal with. You don't have the side effects and so forth.
But they do sell beef heart for fish, so I wonder why they're selling that.
Because they haven't, well, for one thing, it's probably very well processed. I mean, hopefully it is. Hopefully they take all the fat out of it before they process it. If they don't, it's a mess and a disaster. I mean, here's the thing. Don't assume that because something is sitting on the shelf in your pet store, that that's a good thing. It's a good 90% chance it's not a good thing. 90% of the time, it's crap. Pardon my French. But 90% of the time, it's simply a way to get you to spend $1. It has little or nothing to do with the value of that product to your aquarium. It's simply, it's there to create a purchase. It's not there to do anything. Do your research first and make sure what you're buying is worth spending the money on and it's worth putting in your tank, because it may very well not be. Too much stuff is not good to put in your tank.
Right. Well, you've got more questions on feeding, but I don't know how much time you have, so.
Well, we can run through a few. What do you got?
Let's see if I can do this quickly. So Oscar is saying, do you have a favorite brand of flake food that you give?
Omega-1. I like it. It's a good quality food. They use whole fish. They don't use a waste product from packing plants to put in there, or waste product from chicken plants, whatever. They use real whole fish that they catch with their real fishing vessel.
Right. So are you looking at like the ingredients on there to be like this one is fish meal, flaked corn, and wheat flour, followed by rice bran and soybean.
Yeah, horrible. Horrible. Horrible.
I'm kind of like, why did I buy this? I guess just because they said it's good for shell development, and people usually suggest pellets for their shrimp.
Yeah, that contains a lot of material that's indigestible. So it's a terrible.
I have noticed that they eat it. All right. Also,
the heart should be exclusively muscle, Emily, exclusively, not mostly, 100%. There should not be 1% fat or gristle, not even a tiny bit. That's why it's problematic using it.
I'm sorry, and then I didn't copy it, but it was a question about tube effects and mosquito larvae feeding that.
Perfect. Yep, absolutely. If you can get mosquito larvae frozen, I've never found it. Live mosquito larvae is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I just find mosquito larvae hard to collect and keep the water clean when I'm like, netting it out and trying to only get the mosquito larvae. That's tricky.
All right. Let's tie this in a little knot here.
All right. Don't forget to hit the like, guys. We've got 88 watching and only 59 likes. So
oh my!
Don't forget.
You guys get on the ball down there. Go click the like button, please. Nice to have you all here.
Yeah,
good to be with you today. All right.
Oh, great.
Oh, that's interesting. Chevy runs her mosquito larvae under hot water first to prevent them from hatching out. She kills them, in other words, before she feeds them, so she won't get mosquitoes in her house. Yeah. So she's feeding heavily to do that, which means she's raising mosquitoes pretty heavily outdoors. Good night, TJ from Australia. Night all. Holly gives lurking and finishing tank.
Yeah, Lunray Aquatic saying he just started feeding chicken and the fish just look at it and swim away.
That's okay. Give them time. They have to figure out its food.
Yeah.
That's okay. Don't leave it in there though. Take it out. Okay. If they're not eating it right away, take it out and try it again later. 5 minutes or so. Don't let it sit. All right. Well, thank you all. Bless you all. Have a wonderful day. We will see you. What's today? Thursday?
It's Thursday.
We'll be here tomorrow morning.
And Joey will be back tomorrow.
Joey will be back tomorrow, right? See you all in the morning.
All right.
Bye for now. Yeah, Rohan Ocean Nutrition is a pretty good product.